This piece is called Sometimes the City is Silent. I wrote it in 2003 for the high school soloist competition of NFA. And the idea was to explore some extended techniques, but to do it in such a way that it would be reasonable, which I hope it is. The piece is based on a poem called City Night Muses, and this is in reference to our having lived in New York City for the fall semesters at NYU during 1998 and 2000. And we were on the 25th floor of a high-rise, and I got to see all these wonderful patterns at night, which I started thinking of in terms of musical notation. So first I'm going to present the poem to you and then play the piece. City Night Muses. Sometimes I sit and watch the Williamsburg, seeing bridge and streetlights distant, dancing, notation. Black water tower, gestures, clumps of sound. Lights on bridges, structures. Lights in windows, patterns to play. Planes are interruptions on canvas of dark air, shapes of bricks and smokestacks, iron-wrought tops of buildings, squiggles in sound. Sudden, screaming fire engines, Harleys, blaring punctuation of car horns, cab wildness, small barking dog through mass of police sirens, drums on corner, echoes of voices in streets below. And sometimes the city is silent.
Hello, this is Janice Misurell-Mitchell. You have just heard a performance by Caroline Pittman of Sometimes the City is Silent for solo flute. You may use this recording as a model for your performance of the piece. In addition, I'll present more details to help you get the sounds and learn the techniques you will need. Here is the example of what I call an overblown tone. The notation for this is a rectangular note head that is either open or filled in. You create the sound by having a loose embouchure and a very heavy attack, using both the tongue and the diaphragm. The rest of the note is unsupported. The clear note head represents the fundamental of the given pitch. The colored-in note head represents the fundamental and the first octave above it. Caroline will play measures 85 and 86 out of tempo to demonstrate the sound of the tones and to show the contrast between the two. There is another form of this technique, one in which you use the same heavy attack and play the fundamental, first octave, and the 12th, or an octave and a fifth above the fundamental. An example of this is the following, from measures 43 through 45. In measure 18, beat 1, you can use the same technique, accentuating the octave and the 12th. The opening of Sometimes the City is Silent uses a variation on this idea. You create what has been called a harmonic splatter, but with more control. You will want to sound the fundamental, the partial designated above the note, and any pitches from the overtone series that you are able to sound in that single attack. Here is an example of measures 1 through 2 in slow motion. When you reach the low C, it might be a bit breathy at the fast tempo, but remember, this is okay. The section that begins in measure 22 uses the same idea as the opening, but the sound is achieved with a special fingering that will not produce overtones related to the fundamental. Here you need only get the notes that are written out. The higher pitches will result with a harder, more focused attack and more air. The notes with the letter T over them have a kind of stuck sound. You produce them by pressing the tip of your tongue against the roof of your mouth about a quarter inch behind your teeth, then releasing it. Without the flute, it sounds like this. In the music, you will hear it first in measures 29 through 32. Another sound you will need is a breathy or hiss sound, which is in measure 123. To get this, you should add an S as you produce the tone. In measure 39, you are asked to sing and play, beginning on the unison if possible, or at an octave below if you can't sing the unison. When playing at the unison, you may sing slightly off pitch, so that the quality of the note is somewhat rough. You should begin the consonant S slightly before the beat. I've used the International Phonetic Alphabet when there are syllables from words, and the traditional spelling of the words when they appear unchanged. The example here is measures 38 through 40. In measures 50 through 51, 126 through 127, and 132 through 133, you will be asked to sing a pitch different from the one you are playing. Here, the intervallic relationship is a compound major third. In each of these cases, you should try to sing in such a way that the words are audible but do not dominate. It is most important that you try to sing these in tune, and that the resultant tone creates a major triad. This does not have to be loud, but you should be able to hear it, as will the listener. The transition from measure 51 to 52 occurs on the S sound from the word silence. Use that consonant as the beginning of the attack for the G sharp in measure 52. You go from the S right into a breath attack. The following example shall give you an idea of both singing and playing at the 10th and this transition. In the music, this covers measures 49 through 52. The next section contains basically two color elements, harmonics at the 12th and multiphonics whose fingerings are indicated above the notes. In measure 58, you produce both the multiphonic and additional pitches that are contained within it. And now some words about rhythm and meter. There are several tempo changes in the piece. Some of these are created by traditional means, and others use metric modulation. In cases where the unit of beat remains the same, such as in measures 9 through 10, the relationship should be clear. In measures 85 through 86, the unit of beat is doubled, i.e., the old eighth note is the new quarter note. I think that this relationship should be clear also. In measures 14 through 15, however, there is a metric modulation where the previous unit of beat, the dotted quarter, is replaced by a new unit of beat, the quarter note. But the quarter note occurs at the same tempo. This is actually a change from compound meter to a simple meter using triplets instead. Here is how it is played. You'll notice that from measure 90 to measure 113, the rhythm becomes swing. Some of you may be comfortable with this while others may not. If you don't play jazz, you should do some listening, especially to small combo jazz and, of course, to jazz flute. The thing to remember here is that swinging does not mean merely a triplet feel to the music. You should think instead about stressing the second of each pair of eighth notes, perhaps imagining a drum set behind you. Then think straight eighth notes, think about the whole line and its direction. Imagine a jazz singer doing scat singing, and you'll have the concept. Thank you for your interest in this piece, and I hope you enjoy playing it.